All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Paranormal Super Show. I'm Cain Stevens. I'm your host with the most, I hope, and here we are again. This next episode here is going to be part 2 of my interview with Amber Rose Washington. There was just so much content and so many things there to talk about that I thought I'd split it up so that you people with if you have like a shorter attention span like I do, maybe you want to listen to 2 parts instead of like a long one. So this is part 2 of the interview. I hope you like it. We dive into astral projection and sleep paralysis and that stuff. So I'm pretty excited about this one. Like, I'm excited about most things, but to be honest with you, I'm pretty excitable. So so there you go, everybody. Let's just dive into it. So here is part 2 of my interview with Amber Rose Washington, best-selling author and really great person.
I was always interested in the paranormal, not just because of the house being haunted that I grew up in, but I've also dealt with sleep paralysis, and I've had a sleep disorder most of my life, and I've experienced astral projection and all sorts of interesting things, and I've learned how to control the fear. Like, obviously this is a paranormal show, so most of your listeners probably know what sleep paralysis is, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, a lot of people are afraid of it. They try to shake themselves out of it. At one point I figured out, gee, I don't want to be afraid of this, because there's always someone in the room with you as far as you're concerned, right? You feel like this dark presence in there with you. Someone's trying to get you. You can't move. You're freaking out. Your head is shaking wildly left and right to try to wake up. And usually within 2 minutes it goes away. Well, what I decided to do is say, be rational. Don't be afraid. You're not going to die. And then let's see what happens after that. And what I found, when you get past the initial fear of sleep paralysis, something amazing started to happen to me. And I felt this electrical buzzing in the back of my head. To some people it might sound weird, but this buzzing sound and feeling inside of the back of my head that would start to resonate forward. I would then feel my legs lift off the bed. And even though my legs were still on the bed,
right,
there was a feeling like they were lifting off the bed. And then there's this one time where I actually sat up in bed, but I didn't really sit up because I was looking down about, I don't know, maybe about 9 to 14 inches away from me, looking at myself sleeping. I could actually see myself sleeping on my side, and I'm looking down at myself as I'm sleeping. And then I remember, I don't know if it's floating, walking, or what it is, but I found myself moving through my house effortlessly. And I noticed that no matter how bright the house was, wherever I was about 60 to 70% darker than in real life. So if I would have sleep paralysis at 3 p.m. and the sun was still up and it was bright outside, and I went through this sleep paralysis and then this initial astral projection or whatever it is, I would notice it was a lot darker in the wherever I was, the other place. And I would notice no one else was there but me. And I remember this one time, one of my boys had a sleepover, and his friend was sleeping on the floor next to his bed in a sleeping bag. And I somehow moved through my doorway without opening it. I knew I was walking through or floating through my house. I knew what was happening. I was vividly aware that I was still in bed and still there at the same time. And I went and sat on his floor or hovered above his floor or whatever, just staring at them with just peace, like, oh, they're sleeping and they're comfortable and warm, because it was a cold winter's night. It was like in the middle of January, upstate New York. It was like 20 below zero. It was ridiculous. And then I sort of fixated on the hallway, and then within a snap of the fingers, I was in the hallway. And then I got fixated on the fireplace in the living room. And within a split second, I was at the fireplace in the living room. Then I was fixated on the front door of the house. And then within a split second, I was hovering, that's the only word I can use, about 6 feet above the front door outside of the house. Now here's the interesting thing. I could see my neighbor's house. I could see the snowed banks. I could see it snowing. But at the same time, I could hear the fan. I always slept with a fan in my room because I needed noise in order to sleep. So I could hear the fan. I could see the master bathroom in my eyesight. So it was as if I was sleeping with my eyes open. I could see the master bathroom, I could hear the fan, but I could also see the neighbor's house, the snowbanks, and I could see the snow, and I could hear the wind. But there was no hot, cold, or warm. There was no feeling of that. But you could hear and see those things. So I had what I called duality, I guess. It was a duality.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to try to fly. It was so ridiculous. You have so much fun when you're moving around, and I guess most people would call it an out-body experience. It's the most freedom you've ever experienced in your life. It's sort of like a dog that's been caged for 13 years, and the owner finally opens up that cage in a large field and says, go run free. And you just want to run. It's such a weird feeling to experience. And I said, I'm going to fly. And I started to act like I was going to fly over to my neighbor's house. And I felt this enormous pain in the center of my back, and almost like a rubber band snapping me. And I remember waking up immediately in my bed saying, wow, that was weird. Like, what just happened?
Right.
And
what
I got
was
out of
it,
bed.
do you think?
I don't know. I got out of bed and I opened the front door, and sure enough, it was snowing. The snowbanks were just as I saw them. And I was like, that's so weird. And I went into my son's room to check on him, and they were sound asleep, just the way I had saw them just a few minutes before. So we started doing experiments, like, because it was happening to me about once a week.
Mm-hmm.
It was happening a lot. So we would take a deck of cards, and I would tell my son to sort of shuffle them for me and put them on the mantle on the fireplace so I can't see them, but put them face up. And then if it happened, I would actually go out to the fireplace, and the next morning I would say which card was on the top of the deck without peeking. That never happened. It never worked out
that way. Dang.
No. When you plan for stuff like this, it never works out. But, those were very real things. Whether I was astral projecting, whether I was lucid dreaming, whether I was just out of my mind because I have a sleep disorder, I don't know. I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists or anything. It could be whatever it is. That maybe there's a scientific explanation. Maybe astral projection is a scientific explanation for what happens. We don't know. We really have just started to get into the quantum. I'm a geeky girl. The whole idea of quantum and superposition and all that stuff really comes into play here because, I had a duality. I was existing in my bed, sleeping on my left arm, looking into the bathroom, hearing the fan roar, and I was outside staring at my neighbor's house and watching it snow and hearing the wind blow at the same exact moment in time. Interesting.
It is. Now, when you, so you feel that when you were under sleep paralysis, that once you fought through, so to speak, it, that you began to astral project. I mean, that's what you're, given what you're telling me, that's, it sounds exactly like what everybody talks about with astral projection. I too am a sufferer of sleep paralysis, and it is terrifying, and you do wonder why it's happening to you, and what is this that's hovering above you all the time, it seems like, and holding you down. But I've never been able to fight through it. So I really do love that you tell this story. I think it gives a really vivid idea to people who are also suffering through the same thing. Like maybe they can kind of shake their heads and go, yeah, there's somebody out there who has experienced this. I'm not crazy, because that's how I feel. I feel like maybe I'm, I have an active imagination, don't get me wrong. And the skeptic would say, this is just, lucid dreaming, or, an overactive mind, or, you talked about a sleep disorder, and that's how, but they can't really explain why, when you went down there, it was exactly, how you had seen it. That's really telling to me, as evidence. In my mind, I think your experiment was genius. I wish it had worked out. I was on the edge of my seat, hoping, oh God, please tell me she saw the cards exactly, but it didn't work out. But that doesn't mean it couldn't work out. But that's very interesting.
There was one time where my experiment did work out. what happens to me is, and I've been told by a medium that it's because I'm grounded. I'm a grounded individual. And what happens to me is I can't leave wherever I am. So for some reason, I'm so attached to the physical world that when I'm in the ethereal, I'm not able to detach from physics, from what my experience in the three-dimensional world is. And when you're a light form, moving, you don't follow the laws of physics like we do. And for some reason, my brain is so grounded that I can't leave the building that I'm in. So here I was in Chicago, Illinois, doing a gig, and I'm in the Sheraton Hotel, and I fall asleep, and then I said, oh my goodness, it's happening. I was sort of awake, and I could feel the buzzing start. And whenever I knew I was about to experience it, because the buzzing would start first, and I would be like, all right, I'm ready, come on. And I couldn't get out of the room. The suite that I was in, I could move from the bedroom part of the suite to the living room part of the suite and whatnot, but I couldn't get into the hallway, or I couldn't breeze through the window and go flying around Chicago.
Right.
I was stuck wherever I was. So if I was in my house, I was stuck in my house. If I was in my parents' house, and there was a few nights where I would sleep there with the kids, and I was stuck there. And if I was in Chicago, I was stuck there. So it was kind of an interesting thing that wherever I was actually stuck or trapped in the room that I was in. And it reminded me, now a lot of this happened before the Insidious movies. I don't know if you've seen Insidious or...
Oh, yes.
And if you recall, in that movie, there's astral projection in that, and the entity takes control of the person's body and leaves him, the guy, whatever his name was, in the astral realm. And what was disturbing to me when I saw this movie was oh my Jesus Christ, I've gone through this. What if this stuff is true? What if someone could actually steal your, so I started doing more research, and I started talking to some people that actually were more educated than I, and they said, no, that's not, that's Hollywood, don't worry about it. And that's when I started to tell people, if you experience sleep paralysis, do yourself a favor and don't fear it, because nothing's going to happen. Every time you have sleep paralysis, I promise you, if you're trying to shake yourself out of it and something was going to happen, it would have happened anyway, regardless of you shaking yourself out of it. So why not see it through and see what's on the other side, or see how far down the rabbit hole goes, because it's a trip. And I encourage people to just try it out. See if you can get yourself calm down. Nothing's going to hurt you. And instead of shaking your head, I think a lot of us, we have the same experience. We sort of shake our head back and forth, trying to wake ourselves up, trying to get our bodies to move somehow. Instead of doing that, just relax and just put yourself in a safe place and let the experience go through its whole transition. And what happens is your body no longer wants to wake up at that point, and you end up in this, some people call it a hypnagogic state. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, you start floating, weird stuff starts happening. Things are kind of backwards. So when I looked in my room, it was always 70% darker. And, let me tell you something. At nighttime, when your room is dark, 70% darker than dark is pretty dark.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing that's interesting is you can hear sounds. Some people hear tingling sounds and buzzing sounds. Some people hear lots of talking and pots and pans crashing and clanging against each other. They hear this whole multitude of sounds, from what I'm understanding from other people's experiences. And I said, did you ever get over the scariness of it all? And they said, no, I'm too afraid. I said, do yourself a favor and just try it. And I've had a couple friends that did actually try it, and they said that was pretty remarkable. So it's not like you're going to get possessed. I don't really believe in that sort of stuff anyway. I don't think just by astral projecting you're going to have somebody, or some entity, go and possess your body. That just isn't, that's not how it works. Because you're still alive, you're still a light creature, you're still in your body. It's just a piece of you, is whatever that piece is able to move around freely. And everything's backwards. So if the mirror was on that wall, it's over on that wall. If there's a picture here, the picture is kind of backwards. It's weird. It's almost like you're looking inside of a mirror. Everything's kind of backwards, and it throws you off. because you don't really know how to move around. I don't know if you've had other experts on the show, but I'd even love the answer to that one.
That's something that I am working on for a future show, is hopefully near future, is somebody who is an expert on sleep paralysis, because I'd like answers too. I mean, I found myself that I've always had sleep paralysis in every place that I've lived, all aspects of life, but I had it the heaviest when I was in the most haunted of homes that I lived in. And so I didn't know if there was any correlation to that. Did you have more of it when you were in, the most haunted places that you can think of, that you lived in or were around, right, that you can think of?
Interestingly, the home that I grew up in, by the time I was 4 years old, from what my mom and dad told me, I was sleepwalking. Mm-hmm. So it was the opposite. Instead of getting sleep paralysis, I was actually sleepwalking. I was acting out my dreams. So they told me about 2 times, and it's embarrassing for me to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. One time I brought my blankets downstairs. I opened up the front door while they were watching TV, apparently. Opened up the front door, walked out onto the porch, and started to put my blankets in the garbage pails on the porch. And from what my mom and dad told me, they said, "Honey, where are you going?" And I said, "I have to take the garbage out." So I was acting out, a dream sequence that I was in where I was taking the garbage out for them. And that was weird. So instead of waking me up, my dad carefully, apparently, I don't remember any of it, but he guided me back up to my room and tucked me in and made me feel comfortable again, and off to sleep I was. Then another time I walked down, and apparently that time they were in what we would call the dining room, which was later remodeled, but there was a kitchen on the other side of that, and I walked past them, and they said, "Honey, where are you going? You need something to drink?" And apparently I didn't answer them, and I opened up the door, and my mom says, "Honey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I have to go to the bathroom." And apparently I had opened up the refrigerator door to go to the bathroom. Here I was, this little kid, doing that. And they laughed after they told me, and they would tell the relatives, and everybody would have a good chuckle over it. And I was just, go into the bathroom in the refrigerator. That's wonderful. And then the only other time that I remember anything that they told me was when. So there was the time I walked out with the garbage, the time with the refrigerator, and then there was a time I was sitting in a rocking chair having a conversation with my mom. And I was about 6 or 7 because it was after I was deaf. I went deaf at 5 years old and got my hearing back at about 6. And we're having a conversation, and then my mom says I zoned out. And when I came back to, she goes, what was that? And I said, "Oh, I was just in Colleen's room." She goes, "No, honey, you were right here." "No, I was in Colleen's room. She's playing with her dollhouse." We loved Holly Hobby in our household. People today don't even know what that is. And my mom asked my dad, "What's Colleen doing?" "Oh, she's upstairs playing with her Holly Hobby stuff." Now, I was downstairs on a rocking chair, dozed off somehow, and told my mom I was just in my sister's room watching her play with her Holly Hobby thing. And it kind of told my mom, yeah, she's experiencing something strange, something strange in the neighborhood. Who are you going to call?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a little strange, whatever that was. And again, all of these things are anecdotal. I'm not saying that they were real to me, but I'm not saying they are or they're not. I leave it up for whoever the listener to decide for themselves if it makes sense or not. I'm not a crazy person, but these are just some things that have happened to me in my life, and they're strange. They're to me unexplainable.
Absolutely. And thank you once again for sharing all of this. That's why I tell everybody this the reason I do this podcast is to make it, I want to help the rest of the community, of the paranormal community, to make it okay for us to talk about the paranormal. You know what I mean? Like, talk about ghosts and something. I get so tired of the stigma that we're all crazy if we believe in ghosts, or if we believe there's aliens, or if we believe this or that. I personally, and this is my personal belief, I don't believe that everybody is nuts. I don't think I've had friends and people I've talked to try to tell me that seeing a ghost is nothing more than somebody who's mentally disturbed, so to speak, or mentally handicapped in some way. And I find that to be absolutely appalling that they say that, but I have to respect their opinion as skeptics and just hope that as we tell more of these stories, we can kind of not necessarily prove them wrong, but maybe just open their eyes a little bit. So I think that the stories that you've told today are going to help with that, and it's going to keep me on my quest and continue to hopefully help the listeners out there. In closing, Amber, if you'd like to plug anything, a website or anything that your publicist is allowing you to plug, please do so now.
Two things. I'd like to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
And the thought is that I consider myself religiously agnostic at this point. I don't follow any religion any longer. I'm spiritual. We are immortal beings trapped in a temporary 3-dimensional existence. It's as simple as that. We have our 5 senses, but there's a lot more than 5 senses. We're starting to realize that it's not a universe that we live in, but a multiverse. We've also seen that since the early 1900s, when they started really diving into quantum mechanics, that indeed there are things that are outside of the realm of our understanding in standard physics and that break the laws of physics. And they're starting to see that there's this web of almost indeterminable wavelengths and dimensions, if you will, and that we vibrate on a frequency. I believe in that part of physics. Everything is a frequency. And if we vibrate at a certain frequency, what's to say there isn't something that vibrates at a different frequency that's occupying the same space that you and I are in right now? Quantum mechanics has already proven that can happen. So the only thing I'll say other than that is, my book should be coming out in July. It's called The Attic. I just thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all mine, Amber. This has been a fun interview, and I know the tone is kind of serious, and this is not a comedy show by any means, but it's trust me, my life is enough comedy that I probably need a reprieve from it. So thank you for being on the show, and I just hope that I wish you nothing but success in the future. It seems like you've already experienced quite a bit of success, but I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, and keep doing what you're doing.
I will definitely try. Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Bye.
Wow. What an interview that was. What an awesome chance for me to talk to, an accomplished musician, writer, bestseller. I'm blown away by it. Amber Rose Washington once again. What an amazing person. It was, what she had to say was so profound in, her experience growing up. And, she dove into sleep paralysis and what sounds like a, poltergeist-like activity. But man, what a great interview. I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. I'm sure you will. And, please, if you're out there wondering, where can I listen? Amber's out there. Amber's got a lot of stuff going on. Look for her books. I believe, she had mentioned her upcoming book, that kind of will be loosely or, based on what she had talked about. Look for that soon. And I mean, just man, what an awesome guest. I'm kind of in awe that she gave me the time to talk to her. I mean, here I am. I'm just doing my own podcast, and mind you, a paranormal podcast. I mean, this is something way out of the realm of what she's usually into talking about. So I really do ask you to just look her up and see what she's all about. I mean, I think she said, she's been on NPR. She's you know, I believe she's going to be on Fox News and all sorts of different stuff being interviewed. I think she's like number 6 on the bestsellers list for, you know, her latest book. And also she's going to be touring, you know, whenever they begin to tour again, if they haven't already, all over the United States at different campuses. So, you know, for those of you in the Lincoln area, for, you know, which is where I live, the University of Nebraska, there's nothing on schedule right now, she said, but down the line, you know, I will definitely be telling you guys about her and, you know, where she's going to be speaking. So, you know, thank you guys for listening once again. I got lots of ideas, lots of guests. I have multiple guests this week to interview, and they'll be up on other podcasts. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Cain Stevens Paranormal Super Show. And, you know, I'll see you on the other side, kids. Talk to you later.